Okay, let's take a look at the paragraph object properties now. I'm going to click on this icon here and create a new paragraph object. Then I'm going to cut and paste some text in here so that we've got a little bit of length so we can look at the scroll bar. Okay, I'm going to move it out here. And this is the default look that you get from the paragraph object. So if you just go ahead and type in your text and put it on the page, you'll get this default gray scroll bar here of Windows System. Okay, let's take a look at some different ways how we can affect the look of this paragraph object. Okay, so in the Properties pane, you'll see we have the normal options that we expect here. We can name it, we can set the font options, we can set the text, and so forth. And as well, you can also use the ellipsis in the text field here to bring up the Edit Text dialog, and you can save your text, load text from a text file, print your text, or spell check your text by using these series of 4 icons at the bottom here. Okay, so I'm going to press OK because we have our text set up already the way we'd like it. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the font as it is, but of course you have the same options that you would have for that we've looked at for other objects like the label object here, where you can set the font style, the font family, etc., and as well the alignment. So for example, if we had a paragraph object without a scroll bar here, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the vertical scroll option here to off, we could actually see the alignment much more clearly. So here's a left alignment, here's a center alignment, and here's a right alignment. So that's paragraph alignment. If you're trying to hug your paragraph up against an image or something, you might want to use the right alignment, and if you're trying to fit it into a certain area, you might want to use the center alignment. But typically, you'll use the left alignment feature by default. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the scroll styles here. I'm going to turn my vertical scroll bar option here back to auto so that the scroll bar appears. And if you have it set to auto, obviously what's going to happen is it's only going to show up when your content exceeds the size of your paragraph object. So for example, when we have more text inside our paragraph object than it can show at one time, then it's going to introduce a scroll bar so that the user can scroll through and read all the text. Okay, so we've got the default scroll bar set up here. Let's take a look at our scroll styles. You can actually create custom scroll bars or use one of the built-in custom scroll bars for your paragraph objects. So it's set to standard here, but if we pull this down, for example, to basic blue, you'll see it switches. It changes now so that we've got a blue scroll bar, and this is one of the scroll bars that was created to ship with AutoPlay Media Studio. Okay, so we've got a charcoal scroll bar, a chrome scroll bar, and so forth. So you can typically find a scroll bar from the built-in scroll bar library that's going to fit your design. But if you can't, what you can actually do is go into your Programs folder and choose your AutoPlay Media Studio 5.0 folder, professional folder, and go into your plugin scroll bars area here, and go ahead and just take one of these images and copy it and rename it, and then use that as a basis, as a template. If I look through these images here in my image viewer, you'll see they're just a series of images which have been snipped up to fit into this little format. So a great place to get started making your own is to just copy one of these, open it up in Photoshop or some image editor, and edit it to suit yourself, then save it back into this folder. Just make sure that you have the prefix SB_, and your application will detect it, and you'll see it'll be available right here in your scroll style area when you add it. So you can go ahead and add your own custom scroll bars, use the ones that are built in, or use the standard ones. Okay, the scroll options here are what I talked about before. So for example, if you set it to auto, the scroll will appear only when the content exceeds the size of the object. Now you have options here for vertical scroll or horizontal scroll, so you can scroll either way. Additionally, there's an on and an off feature. So if you want to turn the scroll bars off, you can just switch it to off, and if the content exceeds the size of the object, there simply will not be a scroll bar, and the content that is overflowing simply will not be available to the user. This is particularly handy when you're using dynamic content, but you want it to fit within a certain area in your design, and you don't want to use a scroll bar. Additionally, there's an on option, and that will turn on the scroll bar by default, whether or not the content exceeds the object or not. For example, if I put on the horizontal scroll bar, it's on. Okay, so you can go ahead and fool around with these a bit and see how they work. So you've got on, off, and auto for the vertical and horizontal scrolls. Basically, different ways to introduce scroll bars to your paragraph objects. We've got a border option here, and I'm going to go ahead and expand it, and you'll see that there's a color option additionally. So if I go ahead and set up a border for my paragraph object, I'm going to put it to true, and I'm going to deselect so you can see it here. You'll see that there's a border now around the text area of the paragraph object. And I'm going to go ahead and disengage the scroll bar just for the sake of this demonstration. Okay, so that's how you would create paragraphs that look like this. So these fit quite well into any type of layout. Additionally, here you can set your border color. So for example, if I wanted a green border, I could do that. Okay, and so forth. So we've got our, I'm going to go ahead and put that back to black. We've got our border option here, and additionally we've got a back style option. So if you click on the pull down, you'll see there's a solid or transparent option. So you can have your paragraph objects transparent like this, or you can have them a solid color. For example, if I set this to be yellow, you'll see it immediately fills in the box with yellow. Now the way this relates to the paragraph object is basically how it interacts with the rest of the page. So if I go into my gallery and I put a background onto my page here, and then I move my paragraph object over, now you'll see if I change the back color to transparent, what happens? It becomes completely transparent. If I change it to, for example, white, it changes to white, and so forth. So you can basically go through here and find the option that best suits your layout. For example, this would fit more adequately into this layout with the purple background than it would with the yellow background. Okay, so that's just a matter of experimentation, going through and working with it. But suffice to say that you can change the border style, the border color, and the background style and color of your paragraph objects. So I'm going to go ahead and take the border style off, and I'm going to put the back style back to transparent, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my image on my background there, so we can go back to just looking at the paragraph object. So I'll put my vertical scrolls back to auto, and here we are, we're back where we started. Okay, so we've got these additional options here for the state colors, and these are the same as they would be for a label object. For example, if I set my highlight state to be red, when I preview my project, so I'm going to press F5, every time I mouse over that paragraph object, I'm going to get the red color. Okay, so that's the highlight color, as you can see here. And that'll carry through for the entire paragraph object, any content that's in it. Okay, and so you have the same option there, of course, for your down state and whatnot. So for example, if we wanted to set the click state to be a darker red, we could do that, and when we click the text, it'll turn that darker red. Additionally, we've got the disabled state. So these are the same as the colors that we set up for the label object. Okay, we've got the same features here for the highlight sound and click sound. So for example, if you wanted to use your paragraph object as a clickable object, you would set up your font colors and your highlight sound and your click sound, so that for example, when someone's mouse went over top of your paragraph object, it could make a clicking sound, and when they click on it, it could make a different sound. So this is basically the same as it would be for a button or a label object. Okay, so it's the same type of sounds. If I expand this, you'll see it works the same. You just point it to a file or choose the standard sounds. Okay, and we've got our additional options here of the cursor and the tooltip, which are the same again as for the label object. So we can choose alternate cursors, and we can set up a tooltip for a paragraph object. So for example, if we put how to text, now when people go and they run our project, so I'll press F5 to preview it. Whenever they mouse over our text, our paragraph object, that little pop-up text comes. Okay, so in this case it says how to text, and you can set that to anything you like. Okay, so we've got our cursor and our tooltip text. Here we've got our enabled and visible features, and again, this is something that you can affect very easily by way of an action. So for example, if you have a series of paragraph objects that you want to show or hide on your page, or if you want to only enable it once another condition has been met, and so forth. But basically what this is exactly the same as the label object. We can set this to enabled or visible by default, so we can have it set to invisible or disabled here, and we can also set up our size and our positioning options here in the properties pane. So if I wanted to set it to be 50 pixels to the left of my object from the left of the page, and 50 pixels to the top from the top of the page, I could simply change those values numerically right here. If I want it to be 300 pixels wide, I could just type that value in here, and so forth. Okay, so you can go ahead and numerically transform your objects there. And the final area we have here in the properties pane is the on-click, on-enter, on-leave area for the actions. And this is additionally the same as what we had looked at for the label object. So for example, whatever actions you place here in the on-click area will occur when somebody clicks on the paragraph object. Whichever actions you place in the on-enter area will occur when someone puts their mouse over top of the object. And whichever actions you put in the on-leave area will occur when somebody removes their mouse from the object. Okay? So those are basically exactly the same as we've been looking at so far. Now let's just take a look at the properties dialog and see if there's any additional options available to us there. So we'll double click on our paragraph object rather, and you'll see here that we've got some additional options as we did with the label object. For example, the state colors area here. If we had our highlight color set to one color and our click color set to another color and we wanted to quickly match them to the normal color, we could just click the Match Normal button here. So that's fairly convenient. And again, we have the additional text options here of checking the spelling, loading from a text file, and so forth, so that we can quickly spell check our text here. And if we click on that, you'll see the spell check is complete and there was no errors found. And additionally, here in the Attributes tab, you'll see that you also have a check spelling option. Okay? So I'm going to press OK. And those are the properties for the paragraph object. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the actions that go along with the paragraph object and how to use those.